Monitoring is essential to keeping IT systems running smoothly. Alyvix Server's visual monitoring approach complements typical monitoring systems by directly measuring what users experience. You can explore these measurements graphically to find and certify severe latencies and service interruptions, potentially resolve them, and even prevent them from occurring. That's the Alyvix Value. Information technology is everywhere. Even people who don't think of themselves as computer people depend extensively on steady, responsive systems and applications. Think of ticket sellers who now sell online rather than in person or over the phone. Grocery distributors must move perishable foods from distribution centers to the stores that need them. Nurses need to log in to privacy-protected health IT systems to determine and record which patients get which pills. They all need quick, smooth IT experiences to be productive and efficient. IT systems have enabled huge productivity gains, but when they go down, all that productivity is lost and all activity is blocked until they're up and running again. These three scenarios are rooted in the same type of problem: IT systems and applications that slow down so much they become unusable, or that delay important actions with serious real-world consequences. Traditional monitoring systems check objective measurements like storage capacity, CPU load, and network availability and throughput. But they don't measure applications the way users see them. Just because a server is working doesn't mean the applications running on it are working. The goal of a visual monitoring system like Alyvix and Alyvix Server is to find out when applications aren't working as expected before users notice anything wrong and before any important problems can occur. For instance, if you have a service contract, Alyvix Server can certify when those services fall below guaranteed thresholds. If you're an administrator, Alyvix Server provides you early warning when problems first appear, giving you time to fix them before users see them. To find problems, it's helpful to visualize the data. Here we've displayed 1 year's worth of data in 2 interactive graphs. The overview graph on top combines latency and availability with one column representing an entire test case run every 15 minutes. The green, yellow, and red dots show latency within, near, and beyond a threshold limit. The graph below shows individual step completion times with a distinct color for each separate step. Using the Grafana visualization platform, we can drill down into the data by zooming in and out to any time period and scale. Right now, we're zoomed out too far to be able to see any trends. As we zoom in to smaller time periods, we can begin to see more detail, like how long individual runs and steps took, and whether there were any full outages. We can also see patterns in the data, like how latency changes due to increased usage. For instance, with a shopping application, we might see slower response times right before Christmas because many people are using it at the same time. Once you arrive at a time scale where you can see individual steps, variations in particular test case runs appear, where the higher a dot is, the longer that step took to complete, and so users perceive the application as taking longer. In the upper graph, most of the points are green, because most of the time test cases and their steps succeed. Zooming in can be helpful for resolving specific problems, but is too detailed to see general trends. You might not be as interested that a particular nurse had trouble finding medical records on a particular morning, but rather how many mornings your entire nursing staff had to work slowly. Once we zoom out a bit, you can start to see patterns, especially when you select single steps or subsets of steps with the controls below the lower graph. If you build your test case to reflect what a typical user does, then these two graphs combined will show you the minimum time it would take them to go through that task at the moment shown below the graph. In other words, how long it takes to buy a concert ticket. It also shows how long each component step takes, like logging in or waiting for an order confirmation. Too much information can often hide trends, so let's look at just a few of the test case measures at a time. Let's try the vendor's ready measure first. Here you can see weekday latency peaks and when the servers get to rest on the weekend. If we look at the homepage ready measure, we can see that it's relatively constant, with only a moderate number of values out of the ordinary. Steps like this don't usually require further investigation. The transactions ready measure is similar, with many normal values as well as many high latency clusters, which are mirrored in the graph above. We can also compare it with the transactions exported measure, which has a higher baseline and increases in latency both in and out of sync with the measure in red. When we zoom in to look at a section where the latencies are complementary, we see more variability in the blue measure, and it departs more frequently from the minimum value. Whenever you see these latency arches, where the minimum time increases for a long period of time, you need to check that the higher new normal, in this case lasting the whole workday, is acceptable to your users. In the overview graph above, the height of each dot indicates the cumulative time spent waiting on the application, with green showing steps that finished within the expected time, yellow indicating a step exceeded its warning threshold, orange for a critical threshold, and red indicating a timeout where the entire test case run is then abandoned. Whenever we see a large cluster of timeouts as shown here, it's a sure sign that something needs to be fixed. In fact, after this timeout cloud, there was a significant amount of downtime. Alyvix Server can help you see these problems that users are facing and do something about it, even if more typical monitoring measures don't yet show anything as wrong. Alyvix Server and its web-based measurements API lets you use your favorite monitoring system and time-based graphing software to explore when your user-facing applications are suffering from latency bottlenecks and thus becoming increasingly unusable. By helping you analyze trends, providing decision support, showing certified proof of service levels, and triggering notifications and alerts, Alyvix Server can help you reduce costs while optimizing the user experience, and is complementary to your existing hardware monitoring. That's the Alyvix Value. You can get more information about Alyvix Server at the Alyvix website, blog, and user guide at these links. You can also subscribe to the Alyvix YouTube channel and click on the bell to be notified when we post new videos.